The arena floor gleamed under the bright lights of Station Helios 9. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy filled the observation decks, their various forms creating a sea of colors and shapes. They had come to watch the trials, the annual event where the Confederation's finest warriors demonstrated their skills. It was entertainment for some, a matter of pride for others. Jiwoo Park stood in the center of the arena, her boots barely making a sound on the polished metal floor. She wore the standard combat uniform of Earth's military simple, gray, and unremarkable compared to the ornate armor worn by other species champions. Her dark hair was tied back in a practical bun. She looked small under the vast dome of the arena, almost fragile. Across from her stood Theron Val, a Kalthari warrior who towered at 8 feet tall. His body was covered in thick, corded muscle that rippled under his dark blue skin. The Kalthari were known throughout the galaxy as the greatest warriors, strong, fast, and nearly indestructible. Theron's armor gleamed with medals and honors. In his hand, he held a force blade, a weapon that hummed with barely contained energy. The announcer's voice boomed through the arena in a dozen languages simultaneously. Demonstration match. Kalthari champion Theron Val versus human corporal Jiwoo Park. A wave of polite applause, mixed with scattered laughter, rippled through the crowd. Humans were a recent addition to the Confederation, barely 50 years since first contact. Everyone knew they were weak. Their planet was some backwater world. Their military was untested, and their physical abilities were considered below average. The match was supposed to be a courtesy, a diplomatic gesture to include the newcomers in the festivities. Jiwoo could hear the whispers, even from the arena floor. Why is a human even here? This will be over in seconds. Poor thing doesn't stand a chance. She said nothing. She simply waited, her breathing calm and steady. The match coordinator, a thin Vryn with multiple eyes, approached the center. Standard combat rules apply. First to yield or first incapacitation ends the match. Lethal force is prohibited. Combatants, are you ready? Theron raised his force blade in salute, the weapon's energy field crackling brighter. I will make this quick, human. I mean no disrespect. Jiwoo nodded once. None taken. The coordinator's voice cut through the arena. Begin. Theron moved with the speed his species was famous for. He closed the distance in 2 massive strides, his force blade arcing down in a strike meant to tap Jiwoo's shoulder and end the match cleanly. It was a professional move, quick and controlled. Jiwoo didn't dodge. Her hand shot up and her fingers wrapped around the blade's energy field. The crackling energy that could cut through starship hulls touched her bare skin. The crowd gasped. Force blades couldn't be grabbed. The energy field would slice through bone before contact was even made. But Jiwoo's hand remained intact. Her fingers squeezed. Theron's eyes widened in shock. He tried to pull the weapon back, but it wouldn't move. The human's grip held it in place as if it were locked in a vise. He pulled harder, putting his considerable strength into it. The blade didn't budge. Then Jiwoo squeezed harder. The sound started as a high-pitched whine. The force blade's energy field began to fluctuate wildly, the blue light flickering and distorting. Theron stared in disbelief as cracks appeared along the weapon's core matrix, something that should have been impossible. The blade was made from compressed neutronium alloys, designed to withstand impacts that would destroy buildings. With a sound like breaking glass amplified 1,000 times, the force blade shattered. Fragments of metal and crystallized energy scattered across the arena floor. The energy field collapsed with a flash of light that made half the audience shield their eyes. Theron stumbled backward, staring at the broken handle in his hand, then at the small human who stood calmly with pieces of his weapon at her feet. The arena fell silent. Then, every screen in the facility flashed red. The combat scanners, Advanced systems that monitored every biological function of the fighters displayed a single word in bold letters. Impossible. The silence broke as chaos erupted. Aliens in the observation decks started shouting in various languages. Officials rushed onto the arena floor. Medical teams ran to check on Theron, who seemed physically unharmed but was staring at Jiwoo with an expression that looked like pure terror. Security personnel surrounded Jiwoo within seconds. She didn't resist as they led her off the arena floor. As she walked, she could see Daeho Kim in the human observation section. Her commanding officer's face was carefully neutral, but she could read the message in his eyes. They know. Within the hour, Jiwoo sat in a white isolation cell. Scanners lined every wall. Their sensors pointed at her from every angle. Through the transparent barrier, she could see dozens of scientists and military officials gathered, all arguing in heated tones. Xenobiologists pulled up data on their tablets. Military strategists spoke in rapid, urgent voices. Intelligence officers made quick communications on secure channels. Dr. Mireille Choi stood among them, her face carefully composed. She was officially listed as a human cultural liaison to the Confederation's Science Division, but Jiwoo knew better. Mireille was one of several humans who had been quietly gathering information about the galaxy for decades, preparing for the day when Earth's true nature would be revealed. That day had apparently arrived. A senior Vryn scientist activated the communication system. Corporal Park, we need to understand what happened. How did you destroy the Force Blade? Jiwoo looked at the scanner arrays surrounding her. I grabbed it and squeezed. That's all. That's impossible, the scientist insisted. The Force Blade requires 17,000 pounds of pressure per square inch to damage its core matrix. No biological organism can generate that kind of force with a hand grip. Jiwoo said nothing. She simply sat calmly, her hands resting on the table in front of her. The door to the observation area opened, and Daeho walked in, his military credentials apparently enough to grant him access. He spoke briefly with the officials, then activated the comm system himself. Corporal Park, are you injured in any way? No, sir. I'm fine. He nodded slowly. Good. I want you to cooperate fully with any tests they request. Answer their questions honestly. Understood? Yes, sir. Daeho turned to the gathered scientists and officials. His voice was calm, but carried a weight that made everyone stop talking. Gentlemen, ladies, and honored representatives, I understand you have questions. I suggest you begin your tests. I think you'll find the answers very interesting. As teams began preparing their scanning equipment, Jiwoo watched through the barrier. Somewhere in the back of the crowd, she saw Theron being escorted by medical personnel. The great Kalthari warrior wasn't physically hurt, but he walked like someone who had just had his entire understanding of the universe shattered. Much like his weapon, Jiwoo thought. The tests were about to begin, and soon the galaxy would learn what humans had known all along. Earth wasn't just another planet. It was a crucible that forged something the galaxy had never seen before, and they had just invited it to join their civilization. The testing began immediately and continued for 48 hours straight. Jiwoo submitted to every scan the Confederation possessed. She stood still while massive machines circled her body, sat motionless as beams of light measured every cell, and remained patient while doctors from a dozen different species took samples and readings. Dr. Mireille Choi watched the data come in from her position among the xenobiologists. She had been undercover in the Confederation's Science Division for 3 years, quietly learning about alien biology while carefully avoiding direct comparisons with human physiology. Now that careful avoidance was over, the first results appeared on the main display screen, and the room full of scientists fell silent. A Sathari doctor spoke first, his voice uncertain. This cannot be correct. Run the bone density scan again. They ran it 3 more times. The results didn't change. Jiwoo's bone structure was 3 times denser than the galactic military standard. Her bones weren't just strong. They were compressed layers of calcium and minerals that would require industrial equipment to break. Every bone in her body was built like the support beam of a building. Check the muscle tissue analysis, another scientist suggested. The muscle scans were worse. Or better, depending on perspective. Jiwoo's muscle fibers were packed together at a compression ratio that the computer initially flagged as a scanning error. The power-to-weight ratio was off the charts. Each muscle group could generate force levels that matched industrial servos. A Vryn biologist pulled up the cardiovascular data and made a sound that might have been fear. Her heart is designed to pump blood through a system that operates under immense pressure. Look at these arterial walls. They could handle pressure that would explode our own circulatory systems. The respiratory analysis was equally shocking. Jiwoo's lungs processed oxygen at an efficiency that seemed wasteful until someone realized what it meant. Her planet's atmosphere must have dangerously high oxygen content. What kind of world would require these adaptations? The Sathari doctor asked quietly. Myre knew she couldn't stay silent any longer. She stepped forward, her credentials as a xenobiologist giving her the authority to speak. A difficult one, she said simply. May I access the gravitational analysis? She pulled up Earth's planetary data, information that had been publicly available since first contact, but apparently never closely examined. The numbers appeared on the screen. Gravity, 1.3 times galactic standard. Atmospheric oxygen, 23%. Tectonic activity, extreme. Weather systems, violent. Biosphere competition index, critical. The room remained silent as the implications sank in. A young Vryn scientist did the calculation. Most spacefaring species evolved on planets with 0.4 to 0.7 galactic standard gravity. Earth's gravity is... He trailed off, staring at the number. Crushing, Myre finished for him. By your standards, every human lives their entire life in what you would consider a high-gravity training facility. We don't build strength. We're born into it. She pulled up more data, information about Earth's biosphere that had been dismissed as exaggeration or translation errors. The predator-to-prey ratios. The extinction events. The evolutionary arms race that had been running for hundreds of millions of years. Our planet tried to kill us, Myre said quietly. Every day, in 1,000 different ways. Our gravity crushed us, so we evolved denser bones. Our predators hunted us, so we developed endurance and aggression. Our diseases attacked us, so our immune systems became weapons. Our world was war, so we became warriors. One word began appearing in the scientific reports, typed by various researchers who had arrived at the same conclusion. Deathworlder. It was a classification that existed in theory, but had never been confirmed in practice. A planet so hostile that life evolved into something dangerous just to survive. Earth was Class 11 high-gravity extreme hazard world. Humans were the products of that crucible. The reports spread through classified channels within hours. By the end of the second day, the political implications reached the Confederation Council. Ambassador Hyun-woo Song received the summons in the middle of the night, station time. He dressed quickly and made his way to the council chambers, knowing exactly what awaited him. The council chamber was a massive circular room with seats arranged in tiers. Representatives from 47 species sat in their designated sections, and every single one of them was staring at Hyun-woo as he entered. The council speaker, an elderly Vryn with silver-tinged scales, activated the central display. Jiwoo's scan results appeared for everyone to see. Ambassador Song, the speaker began, his voice carefully neutral. The Confederation has become aware of certain biological facts regarding your species. We require clarification. Hyunwoo stood at the speaker's podium, alone and facing the entire council. I am prepared to answer your questions. A Kalthari representative stood. Did Earth's government knowingly withhold information about human physical capabilities during the admission process? We provided all requested data, Hyunwoo replied calmly. Planetary statistics, biological samples, cultural documentation, everything the Confederation asked for. But you didn't mention that you were warriors, the Kalthari insisted. You didn't ask, Hyunwoo said simply. You saw our size compared to Kalthari and assumed weakness. You tested our diplomats and scientists, not our soldiers. You made assumptions based on incomplete information. A Sathari trade representative spoke up, his voice sharp. Are you claiming this was not deliberate deception? I'm claiming, Hyunwoo said carefully, that Earth joined the Confederation because we wanted to explore and trade. We wanted to learn from older civilizations and share what we had discovered. We never claimed to be weak. You assumed it. We simply didn't correct you. Why? The council speaker asked. Hyunwoo took a breath. Because we know what happens when people fear you. We've seen it in our own history. Fear leads to conflict. We wanted to build relationships, not provoke an arms race. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species called for immediate sanctions. Others demanded that human colony applications be frozen pending further investigation. 3 representatives called for humanity to be reclassified as a potential military threat. Through it all, Hyunwoo stood calmly, waiting for the noise to die down. Finally, the council speaker called for order. This council will require time to evaluate these developments. All human applications for expansion rights are suspended. All current trade agreements will be reviewed. Ambassador Song, your delegation is confined to the embassy district until further notice. Hyunwoo nodded. Understood, Speaker. May I make one request? Speak. Corporal Park has been in isolation for 2 days. She's not a criminal. She is a soldier who defended herself in a sanctioned combat match. I request she be released to human custody. The speaker considered this. She may return to the human quarters, but she is not to leave the station. We may require further testing. Thank you, Speaker. As Hyunwoo left the chamber, he knew the easy part was over. Now came the difficult work of managing fear and rebuilding trust. The galaxy had just learned that the friendly neighbors from Earth were actually apex predators. How they reacted would determine humanity's future in the stars. Back in the isolation cell, Jiwoo stood as the door opened. Daeho entered, his expression serious. You're free to go, he said. For now. As they walked through the corridors, Jiwoo spoke quietly. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to. Don't apologize, Daeho interrupted. You did nothing wrong. You defended yourself in a combat match using reasonable force. It's not your fault they built their weapon poorly. Despite the tension, Jiwoo almost smiled. But, Daeho continued, things are going to change now. The galaxy is afraid. They're going to look at every human differently. They're going to wonder what else we haven't told them. What do? Daeho stopped walking and looked at her directly. We show them that strength doesn't mean cruelty. That power doesn't require domination. We prove that humans can be trusted, even when we're dangerous. Jiwoo nodded slowly. How do we do that? By being exactly who we've always been, Daeho said. Honest, fair, and willing to help. They're afraid of what we can do. We need to show them what we choose to do. As they reached the human quarters, neither of them knew that the testing was just beginning, and not all of it would be scientific. The Confederation's intelligence division occupied 3 entire levels of the Central Command Station. In a secure conference room, Analyst Prime Kelroth sat surrounded by holographic displays, each showing a different piece of information about humanity. Kalroth was Vryn, non-binary, and considered one of the best intelligence analysts in the Confederation. Right now, they felt like they had been doing their job wrong for 50 years. Pull up all human military engagements since first contact, Kalroth ordered their team. Dozens of files appeared in the air around them. Small conflicts mostly. Border disputes with pirates. Escort missions gone wrong. Rescue operations in dangerous territory. Nothing major. Humans had been involved in the Confederation's peacekeeping efforts, but always in supporting roles. They drove transport ships, provided medical aid, and handled logistics. Or so everyone had thought. Kalroth opened the first file. 3 years ago, the freighter Gentle Breeze had been attacked by 12 pirate vessels in the outer reaches. The ship's captain had been human Captain Soman Han. She had held off the entire pirate fleet for 6 hours, using a single corvette-class escort ship until Confederation reinforcements arrived. The original analysis credited superior human computing systems and tactical software. Kalroth pulled up the combat footage and ran it through new analysis filters, this time accounting for human physical capabilities. The patterns became clear immediately. Captain Han had pulled maneuvers that generated 7 to 9 times galactic standard gravity, tones that would have crushed a Vryn pilot's organs, acceleration that would have knocked a Kalthari warrior unconscious. The computer had assumed mechanical assistance or automation. The computer had been wrong. Captain Han had flown the entire engagement manually, her body enduring forces that should have killed her. Next file, Kalroth said quietly. The Battle of Redstone Colony. A ground engagement where human peacekeepers had defended a civilian settlement against raiders. The official report noted that Sergeant Tyjan Beek had crossed 40 kilometers of hostile terrain in 8 hours while carrying a wounded comrade and full combat equipment. The report assumed he had used an exoskeleton. The footage showed otherwise. Tyjan had made the journey in basic armor, his body carrying nearly twice its own weight across rough ground at a pace that professional human athletes would struggle to match. File after file revealed the same pattern. Lucky victories were actually displays of physical capability far beyond what anyone had realized. Technological advantages were often just humans doing things with their bodies that other species needed machines to accomplish. Kalroth compiled the data into a report and sent it directly to the council speaker. The response came within the hour. The council demanded a demonstration. 2 days later, Daeho Kim stood in the center of a different arena. This one was smaller, more clinical. It was designed for testing, not entertainment. Representatives from 20 species sat in the observation deck behind reinforced barriers. Medical teams stood ready. The entire event was being broadcast on secured channels to military commanders across the Confederation. Lieutenant Kim, the council speaker's voice came through clearly. The Confederation requests a demonstration of human physical capabilities. You have volunteered for this. Is that correct? Yes, Speaker, Daeho replied. His voice was calm, professional. You may begin when ready. The first test was combat. 3 Kalthari warriors entered the arena, each one a decorated champion. They were armed with training weapons and protective gear. Daeho wore the same. The match lasted 4 minutes. Daeho moved like water, flowing around strikes that would have broken bones, countering with precision that came from years of training. But it wasn't just technique, it was the raw physical ability behind each movement. When he blocked, his arms absorbed impacts that should have shattered them. When he struck, his blows sent Kalorariers stumbling backward despite their superior size. The third warrior yielded when Daeho put him in a joint lock that the Kalthari's physiology couldn't escape from. All 3 champions sat on the arena floor, breathing hard, while Daeho stood calmly with barely elevated respiration. The observation deck was silent. The second test was endurance. A 50-kilometer course with full combat gear, 30 kilograms of equipment. Standard military doctrine said such a march should take 6 to 8 hours with rest breaks. Daiho completed it in 2 hours and 47 minutes without stopping. The observation teams tracked his vital signs the entire way. His heart rate elevated but remained stable. His oxygen consumption increased but stayed within safe ranges. His muscle tissue showed fatigue markers, but nothing critical. He finished the course, set down his equipment, and asked if they needed him to do anything else. The third test was survival tolerance. Temperature extremes, pressure variations, exposure to atmospheric conditions that range from barely breathable to actively toxic. Daiho exceeded safety margins by an average of 300% across all categories. When the test concluded, Daiho stood in the center of the arena while medical teams checked him over. He had minor fatigue, slight dehydration, and absolutely no serious injuries. The doctors cleared him for duty immediately. Kelroth descended from the observation deck and approached Daiho directly. "Lieutenant, I need to ask you something, and I need an honest answer." "Go ahead, analyst." "Are you considered an elite soldier among humans? Special forces? Enhanced in some way?" Daiho shook his head. "I'm a regular infantry officer. Above average, maybe, but nothing special. There are thousands of human soldiers with similar capabilities." Kelroth's expression didn't change, but their scale shifted color slightly, a Rin sign of deep concern. "And your special forces?" Daiho smiled, but there was no humor in it. "With respect, analyst, we prefer you never find out." The meaning was clear. If regular human soldiers could do this, their elite forces were capable of things the Confederation didn't want to imagine. The demonstration footage spread through military channels within hours. The response was immediate and varied. 3 species that had previously called for human threat reclassification withdrew their objections. 2 others opened diplomatic channels to discuss joint military exercises. The Kalthari High Command sent an official apology to Jiwoo and requested respectfully that she consider training a class of their warriors in human combat techniques. But not everyone was pleased. In a private station far from Confederation space, Trademaster Velkonis watched the demonstration footage with growing anger. Velkonis was Satharai, a species that dominated freight and transport across 17 sectors. Human shipping companies had been trying to expand for years, but Satharai traders had successfully blocked them by claiming humans couldn't handle high-gravity cargo operations. That lie had just been exposed completely. Velkonis pulled up financial projections. If human freight companies started operating without restrictions, Satharai trade profits would drop by 40% within 5 years. Billions of credits would be lost. Shipping routes that had been exclusively Satharai for generations would suddenly have competition. He opened a secure communication channel. The face that appeared on the screen was humanoid, but clearly not human sharp features, red eyes, and skin that looked like polished stone. "Velkonis," the figure said. "This is unexpected." "Commander Drax," Velkonis replied. "We need to talk about the human problem." Commander Drax represented the hegemony of Drath, a militant faction that operated in the border regions. They believed in species purity and opposed the Confederation's integration policies. They had tolerated humanity as long as humans seemed harmless. That tolerance had just ended. "I saw the demonstration," Drax said. "Your council has been deceived. Humans have been operating as spies, hiding their true nature. This is exactly the kind of infiltration we warned against." "I have a proposal," Velkonis said carefully. "What if we could prove that humans cannot be trusted? That their deception runs deeper than physical abilities?" Drax leaned forward. "Continue. Human ships operate along the border zones. lightly defended routes. If something were to happen, an incident that appeared to involve human aggression, the Council would have to reconsider their position. "You're suggesting we frame them for piracy," Drex said bluntly. "I'm suggesting," Valkonis replied, "that we reveal what they really are. Warriors pretending to be peaceful traders. The galaxy deserves to know the truth." Drex smiled, showing too many teeth. "Send me the shipping routes. We'll take care of the rest." The communication ended. Valkonis sat back in his chair, feeling satisfied. Humans thought they could just reveal their strength and have everyone accept them. They were wrong. The galaxy feared them now, and fear could be weaponized. He didn't know that his communication had been intercepted by Confederation security, or that Dr. Marechoi was already analyzing the data, or that humanity was about to face a test that had nothing to do with physical strength. The galaxy was learning to fear human capability. Soon, it would learn whether that fear was justified. Ensign Narration checked the patrol route one more time, even though she had memorized it hours ago. This was her first assignment on a mixed-species crew, and she wanted everything to be perfect. The ship was a standard Confederation patrol vessel called the Vigilant Star, crewed by 2 Kalthari, 3 Vrin, 1 Sathari, and herself, the only human. The crew had been professional but distant. After the revelations about human capabilities, everyone seemed uncertain about how to treat her. They were polite, careful, and clearly uncomfortable. Nari understood. She would be uncomfortable too if she learned her weakest crew member was actually potentially the strongest. "Ensign Shin, report to the bridge," the comm system announced. Nari made her way through the corridors. The ship's commanding officer was Vrax Yawn, a Kalthari veteran with 30 years of service. He stood at the command console, reviewing sensor data with a frown. "Sir?" Nari asked. "We've received updated orders," Vrax said without looking at her. "Pirate activity reported in Sector 17. We're to investigate and provide support if needed." "Understood, sir." The journey to Sector 17 took 6 hours. During that time, Nari noticed something odd. The crew seemed tense, whispering among themselves when they thought she couldn't hear. The Cythera communications officer kept glancing at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. When they reached the sector, the sensors picked up debris immediately. A cargo vessel had been attacked recently within the last few hours based on the scatter pattern. "Life signs?" Vrax asked. "Negative," the sensor operator replied. "But I'm picking up drive signatures. Multiple vessels, heading outbound toward the border zone. Pursuit course. All crew to combat stations." As Nari took her position at the engineering console, the tactical display updated. 3 vessels, medium-sized, with engine signatures that matched known pirate configurations. They were running, but not particularly fast, almost like they wanted to be followed. "Sir," Nari said carefully, "something feels wrong about this." "Noted, Ensign," Vrax replied shortly. "Maintain current course." The pursuit lasted 20 minutes before the pirate vessels suddenly changed course and opened fire. But they weren't aiming at the Vigilant Star. They were firing at each other. "What are they doing?" Vrax demanded. 2 of the vessels exploded. The third one limped away, badly damaged. Then new contacts appeared on Sensors 5 ships, emerging from behind a nearby asteroid field. Large vessels, military grade. "Hegemony ships," the tactical officer announced, their voice tight with tension. "They're hailing us, on screen." Commander Drex's face appeared. "Confederation vessel, you are ordered to stand down and prepare for boarding. You are suspected of collusion with criminal elements. This is Commander Vrax Yawn of the Vigilant Star. We are on a legal patrol under Confederation authority. You have no jurisdiction here. We have evidence of Confederation vessels working with pirates in this region, Drex said coldly. Specifically, human vessels. Your ship has a human crew member. We will board and investigate. Nari felt her blood run cold. This was a setup. The pirate vessels had been hegemony ships with false identifiers. They had destroyed themselves to create evidence of a battle. And now, tactical, scan those destroyed vessels, she said quickly. Ensign, return to your station, Rax ordered. Sir, please, just scan the debris. Check the engine signatures against known human designs. The tactical officer looked at Vrax, who nodded reluctantly. A moment later, the results appeared. The destroyed vessels? They're using hegemony propulsion systems with spoofed identification codes, the officer said slowly. They were made to look like human ships. Drex's expression didn't change. Convenient claim. We will still board for inspection. Negative, Rax said firmly. This is Confederation space. You are in violation of. The communication cut off as the hegemony ships opened fire. The first impact rocked the Vigilant Star violently. Alarms blared as shields flared and dropped to 60%. Return fire. Rax commanded. Get us out of here. But the hegemony ships had positioned themselves perfectly. They blocked the escape routes while maintaining overwhelming firepower. The second volley brought the shields down to 30%. We can't fight 5 ships, the tactical officer said. We need to surrender. They'll kill us, Nari said quietly. This is a setup. They can't leave witnesses. Vrax looked at her, and she saw the realization in his eyes. He knew she was right. The third volley disabled their engines. Emergency lighting kicked in as main power fluctuated. All crew, prepare for boarding, Rax announced. Arm yourselves. We defend this ship. The crew scrambled for weapons. Nari grabbed a standard-issue plasma rifle and moved toward her designated defensive position. As she did, Rax stopped her. Ensign Shin, I need you in secure quarters. If they're specifically targeting humans, with respect, sir, anywhere on this ship is equally dangerous right now. Let me help. Rax studied her for a moment, then nodded. Deck 3, Section 7. Defensive Position 2. The boarding happened fast. Hegemony soldiers cut through the hull in multiple locations simultaneously, storming the ship with overwhelming numbers. The crew of the Vigilant Star fought hard, but they were outmatched and outnumbered. Nari heard the fighting through the walls as she held her position. Plasma fire, shouting, the distinctive sound of Kalthari battle cries. Then, slowly, the sounds died down. Her COMM unit crackled. All Confederation crew members, surrender immediately. Continued resistance will result in termination. Nari's position was in a corridor junction that provided good cover and clear sightlines. She stayed quiet, controlling her breathing the way she had been trained. Through the smoke and emergency lighting, she saw movement hegemony soldiers advancing in formation, checking rooms systematically. They were thorough, professional, and they outnumbered her at least 20-1. Her rifle had maybe 30 shots left. Standard tactics said to surrender. Standard tactics assumed both sides valued life equally. But these soldiers weren't here to take prisoners. This was an elimination mission. The first soldier entered her sightline. Nari fired once, the plasma bolt catching him in the shoulder joint of his armor. He went down. The others scattered, taking cover. We have hostile engagement. Deck 3. Someone shouted. More soldiers came. Nari moved, using the corridor's layout to her advantage. Fire and move. Never stay in one position. Make them cautious. Make them slow. She dropped 2 more soldiers before they started coordinating their approach. They were learning, adapting, using overwhelming fire to suppress her position while others advanced. Nari fell back to a secondary position, her training taking over. Human military doctrine emphasized mobility and adaptability. Use the environment. Exploit every advantage. The ship's maintenance tunnels provided routes between decks that most species never used. They were narrow, barely large enough for humans. Nari squeezed through one, emerging behind the Hegemony advance team. 3 soldiers were bunched together, focused on the position she had just left. Nari didn't hesitate. At close range, without cover, the fight lasted seconds. She used the rifle like a club when it ran out of ammunition, then grabbed a fallen soldier's weapon. "Report!" a voice demanded through the enemy comms. "What's happening on Deck 3? "It's the human," someone responded, and Nari heard something in their voice she didn't expect: fear. "She's everywhere. We've lost 6 soldiers. Request backup." 6? Nari quickly counted. Yes, 6 down. Against trained Hegemony soldiers in full combat armor. She was fighting on instinct now, years of training combining with the simple fact that her body could do things these soldiers couldn't. She was faster, stronger, more durable. Every advantage Earth's terrible gravity had given her kind was now being used in the corridors of the ship. The fighting continued for 30 minutes. Nari used every trick she knew: ambush tactics, hit-and-run attacks, psychological warfare. She made noise in one section to draw soldiers, then struck from a completely different direction. She sabotaged lighting systems to create darkness that her Earth-adapted eyes could handle better than theirs. And slowly, incredibly, the Hegemony soldiers started to pull back. "Retreat to the boarding point," a commander ordered. "The human is... We cannot secure the ship with current forces." Nari followed them, maintaining pressure, making sure they left. When the boarding craft finally detached and pulled away, she slumped against the wall, her body finally registering the dozen minor injuries she had sustained. The ship's emergency lights flickered. In the silence, she heard movement racks, limping, supported by one of the Vrin crew members. "Ensign Shin?" he called out. "Here, sir," she replied weakly. Vrax stared at her, then at the corridor behind her where Hegemony bodies lay scattered. You held them off alone?" "I didn't have much choice, sir." The Vrin crew member was looking at her with an expression of pure shock. "You fought 20 soldiers. By yourself. And won." Nari shook her head. "Not 20. Maybe 12. The rest retreated." She tried to stand, winced. "Sir, we need to send a distress signal. They might come back with reinforcements." "Already done," Vrax said. He continued to stare at her. "In 30 years of service, I have never seen anything like what you just did." "I did what I had to do, sir." "Same as you. Same as all of us." But Nari could see the realization in his eyes. The same realization that was spreading through the Confederation Council chambers had never been so crowded. Every seat was filled, and additional observers stood along the walls. The emergency session had been called to address what the official records called the human question, though everyone knew it was really about fear and trust. Ambassador Hyun Woo-song stood at the speaker's podium, flanked by Ji-woo Park, Dae-ho Kim, and Nari Shin. All 3 wore their dress uniforms, standing at attention with quiet dignity. Behind them, in the human delegation section, sat Dr. Marie Choi and Commander Yoonji Kwon, along with representatives from Earth's government. The council speaker called the session to order. This council has reviewed the evidence regarding recent events, including the Hegemony conspiracy and the biological revelations about human capabilities. We have heard testimony from multiple sources. Now we will hear from humanity directly. Before Hyunwoo could speak, the Vrin ambassador rose. "Speaker, I request permission to address the assembly first." "Granted." The Vrin ambassador's scales shifted through several colors as they spoke, a visible sign of emotional conflict. Humanity deceived us. They allowed us to believe they were weak when they were not. They permitted us to make assumptions that were fundamentally incorrect. How can we trust them now? Murmurs of agreement rippled through several delegations. Hyunwoo waited for silence, then spoke calmly. Ambassador, may I ask a question? Proceed. When Earth applied for Confederation membership, what biological data did you request? The Vrin ambassador checked their records. Standard genetic samples, medical data, planetary environmental statistics. And did we provide that data? Yes. Completely and accurately? As far as we can verify, yes. Hyunwoo nodded. Then we did not deceive you. We provided exactly what was requested. What we did not do was explain the implications of that data. We assumed incorrectly, perhaps that xenobiologists would analyze it properly. You knew we would misunderstand, the Vrin ambassador protested. No, Hyunwoo said firmly. We hoped you would see us for what we are, people. Not weapons, not threats, not anomalies. Just people trying to find our place in a larger universe. A Kalthari representative stood. But you are weapons. Your bodies are built for war. Jiwoo stepped forward, and Hyunwoo gestured for her to speak. Honorable representatives, she began, her voice clear and steady. I shattered a force blade because I could, not because I wanted to. Every human carries the capacity for violence. We evolved on a world that demanded it. But having the capacity for something doesn't mean choosing to use it. She paused, looking around the chamber. Earth's history is filled with war. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times over. We built weapons that could end our entire species. And then, slowly, painfully, we learned to choose differently. Not because we became weak, but because we understood that true strength means knowing when not to fight. Daeho spoke next. I demonstrated human capabilities because you asked. I could have refused. I could have hidden our abilities further. But hiding would mean we didn't trust you to handle the truth. And building a relationship on that kind of mistrust helps no one. Nari was the last to speak, her voice soft but carrying clearly through the chamber. I fought to protect my crew. Not to prove human superiority, not to intimidate, but because people were in danger and I could help. Commander Vrax and his crew didn't see me as a threat. They saw me as a comrade. That's what I want to be to all of you. The Cytheri delegation leader stood, their expression conflicted. Beautiful words. But Trademaster Velkonis operated with significant support within our government. He believed humans would destroy our economy. His fears were not unreasonable. Hyunwoo addressed this directly. Your economy was based on the false premise that humans couldn't compete in high-gravity operations. That wasn't our deception, that was your assumption. Yes, human shipping companies can now compete fairly, but competition benefits everyone through innovation and better service. Unless you believe the Confederation exists only to protect economic monopolies? The Cytheri delegates sat down, unable to respond. The council speaker raised a hand for silence. The council must deliberate. This session will recess for 3 days. Those 3 days felt like 3 years. The human delegation remained in their quarters, watching news feeds from across the galaxy. Public opinion was divided sharply. Some species saw humans as dangerous. Others saw them as potential allies. Still others seemed undecided, waiting to see what the council decided. Theron Val, the Kalthari warrior who had faced Jiwoo in the arena, gave an interview that spread widely. I was afraid when she broke my weapon. I thought she would kill me, but she didn't. She stopped, helped me up, and asked if I was injured. That moment taught me more about humans than any demonstration could. Dr. Myri Choi appeared on several scientific programs, patiently explaining Death Worlder evolution. Strength isn't a choice, but how you use strength absolutely is. Humans chose cooperation because our world taught us that even the strongest individual cannot survive alone. On the third day, the council reconvened. The chamber fell silent as the speaker stood. The Confederation Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's status within our organization. Yunwu stood calmly, but his hands were clenched behind his back. First, the speaker continued, the Council acknowledges that humanity provided all requested data during the admission process. No formal deception occurred. However, the Council also recognizes that both parties could have communicated more clearly. A pause. Second, the Council officially reclassifies Earth as a Class 11 high-gravity extreme hazard death world or planet, with all associated rights and responsibilities. This classification grants humanity full access to specialized trade routes, modified safety regulations appropriate to their physiology, and recognition of their unique capabilities. Murmurs spread through the chamber. This was more than anyone expected. Third, all human freight and security companies are granted full operational status throughout Confederation space, subject to standard licensing requirements that apply to all species. The Sathari delegation looked unhappy, but they didn't protest. Fourth, humanity is eligible for positions within the Confederation Security Council, including military command positions for which their capabilities are particularly suited. A Kalthari representative stood and spoke. In addition to the Council's decision, the Kalthari High Command wishes to propose a joint military academy. We have much to learn from human combat philosophy, and we hope humans might benefit from our strategic experience. Humu bowed respectfully. The Kalthari honor us. We accept. The speaker raised their hand once more. Finally, this council wishes to state clearly, humanity chose peace from a position of strength, not weakness. That choice deserves respect, not suspicion. This session is adjourned. As the council chamber emptied, Raxian approached the human delegation. His injuries from the hegemony attack had healed, though he still moved carefully. Ensign Shin, he said formally. Nari stood at attention. Commander Vrax, I wanted to thank you, and to apologize. When you first joined my crew, I saw you as the weakest member. I was wrong. You were the strongest, not just physically, but in courage and loyalty. You fought just as hard, sir, Nari replied. Strength isn't only physical. Rax smiled a rare expression for Kalthari. Exactly so. I hope you'll consider returning to the Vigilant Star when she's repaired. I would be honored to have you on my crew. I'd like that, sir. 1 year later, the Joint Combat Academy held its first graduation ceremony. The facility orbited a neutral moon, built cooperatively by humans and Kalthari, with input from a dozen other species. The graduating class included warriors from across the Confederation Kalthari, Rin, Sathari, and Human, all training together. Dao Kim stood at the podium as head instructor, looking out at the assembled graduates. When this academy opened, many people asked what humans could teach that other species didn't already know. The answer is simple. We teach you nothing new. We remind you of something old. He gestured to the mixed species class. Every species here evolved through struggle. Every one of you survived challenges that would seem impossible to others. Your strength, physical, mental, cultural, comes from those challenges. What humans learned on Earth, you learned on your own worlds. The difference, he continued, is that we learned to acknowledge our strength while choosing peace. We learned that the strongest warrior isn't the one who wins every fight, but the one who knows which fights are worth having. Myra Choi ran the Xenobiology department, teaching students about comparative evolution and the beautiful diversity of life across the galaxy. She had published 3 papers on Deathworlder adaptations, helping other species understand how extreme environments shape biology in fascinating ways. Nari worked as a first contact specialist, using her experience to help bridge understanding between species that feared each other. She often told her story not to intimidate, but to show that strength and compassion could coexist. And Jiwoo stood before a class of mixed-species recruits in the combat training center. She watched as a human student sparred carefully with a Kalthari partner, both of them learning to adjust.